Hey, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Coffee, where today we're going to be diving into the expanded and updated, after the final trailer, Rise of Skywalker, Act 1 leaks. This is from the Jedi Paxis, very credible source based on all of the trailers. That's today here on Star Wars Coffee. Welcome back to all of the returning subscribers, but if you're new to the channel and you're just finding me for the first time, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button on this video and any other video that you check out, and be sure to hit that notification bell not once but twice so that you're always notified the second a new video goes live. Alright, with that being said, we're going to throw out a spoiler warning just so that anybody who doesn't want to know anything more about the Rise of Skywalker than you already do doesn't get this movie spoiled. Because Jedi Paxis is a very credible source based on all of the footage we've seen thus far. Alright, but with that being said, let's jump in to the Rise of Skywalker updated Act 1. The Jedi Paxis disclaimer. Due to the fact that the Rise of Skywalker has gone through some reshoots, the film is currently being edited, and the basic nature of leaked information in general, I cannot guarantee that everything you read here will make the final cut of the film, just as I described. My sources assume that the majority of the film has been outlined here and will more than likely consist of some combination of pre- and post-reshoot elements. That being said, there will undoubtedly be severally surprised unaccounted here for sure. That's just part of the nature of leaked information. What the final combination of story elements will look like when December rolls around is anybody's guess. Act 1. According to my sources, the scene of Luke and Leia training as Jedi are no longer in the opening of the film and may be entirely cut and do a favor of dialogue between Rey and the ghost of Luke later on in the film. The current opening is as follows. On Exegol. The film now apparently begins with a shot of the control tower rising from the ground of the planet. The control tower begins transmitting a signal. Some rumbling below the surface of the planet begins, and then the Star Destroyers of the Sith fleet break through the dark, rocky surface of the planet and rise into the air. Apparently this change was made to establish the fleet as a threat from the very beginning, as well as coordinate with the changes made to the back half of the film during reshoots. Forest planet bathed in red light. Supreme Leader Kylo Ren has been aware of a dark power behind his predecessor and former master, Supreme Leader Snoke. Kylo has been spending his time as leader of the First Order with the purpose of locating this power. General Hux and General Pryde have been following Kylo around on his quest and are beginning to get very frustrated with what they see as a fool's errand. They see this as a waste of First Order time and resources. When we catch up with the villains of our story, Kylo is leading an assault on this planet with the purpose of finding Darth Vader's Wayfinder device. The device reveals the coordinates with the unknown regions, and Kylo is confident that this will reveal the source of Snoke's power. Kylo Ren slaughters his way through the natives and is eventually led to the Oracle, who gives him the Wayfinder. According to my sources, the Oracle sequence has been removed from the film in wake of reshoots in favor of the following. Kylo walks towards a castle/tower described to me as similar in style to Vader seen in Rogue One and finds the Wayfinder in a chest. Prior to getting the Wayfinder, Kylo has what is described to me as a split-second flashback to Luke and Han. What this means exactly is unknown to me, but my source made it clear that the voiceover and the flashbacks of this nature are very easy to drop in and out, so it's possible this may not make the final cut. Kylo then hears a voice that the audience should be able to identify as Palpatine, calling Kylo to come to him. Apparently Kylo natives is toned down a bit to provide a smoother transition between evil Kylo in the beginning and a good Ben at the end. I'm also told that the Oracle was removed because it's deemed too confusing for general audiences. The Resistance Jungle Base. Leia has picked up where her brother left off and has been helping Rey learn the ways of the Jedi. Rey is seen doing some meditative/mental force training, but is struggling with it. Reshoots have apparently amended Rey's mental training to be focused around trying to communicate with the past Jedi who have become one with the Force. In frustration, she asks Leia if she can do some physical training instead. This is when we see Rey doing the jungle and the Force in the D23 first look. It appears that Rey has more physical fortitude than she has mental strength. Reshoots have added a greater sense of anger in Rey during her physical training. In her anger, she cuts down a tree which falls on BB-8 and damages him. After her training, she tries to communicate with Luke, asking him to appear to her, but nothing happens. Rey gives her lightsaber to Leia, feeling that she is undeserving of it. The reasoning why this was added seems to be to establish Rey's struggle with anger and inability to commune with the dead Jedi earlier in the film, making her successes in the end over these struggles more impactful. The unknown regions on Exegol. After obtaining Vader's device, Kylo travels to the place specified by the Wayfinder. It takes him to the unknown regions and a dead planet of flat, black rock. I previously reported that the planets where Kylo finds Vader's Wayfinder was called Exegol. Since then, my understanding has evolved, and I've been told that this planet apparently actually bears that name. Kylo lands on a giant cube, floating just above the ground, and begins walking toward it. Kylo walks between the cube and the ground, and once he reaches the center, he discovers an elevator leading down below the planet's surface. He follows the lift down. As Kylo descends, he passes by giant statues and finds an old man near death, lying in bed, being tended to by cloaked aides. Palpatine is apparently vertical on this bed. To me, it sounds similar to the kind of slab Vader was on at the end of Revenge of the Sith. My source believes these aides to be referred to as Sith loyalists. The old man identified himself as Darth Sidious. After his defeat at Endor, he left the known galaxy and traveled to the unknown regions to rebuild his empire. Palpatine orders Kylo to bring Rey to him and turn her, unifying forces of darkness. Palpatine also reveals that he has been amassing an armada of Star Destroyers equipped with Death Star tech, each one capable of destroying a planet on its own. General Hux and General Pride are tasked with rounding up children in large numbers to train and staff his armada. The new version of this scene seems to put Kylo's volatility and anger front and center. Instead of more or less just having a conversation like before, Kylo now apparently threatens Palpatine point blank with his lightsaber after making his way over to him. Words are apparently traded back and forth between the two. It's been indicated to me that Palpatine does not refute that he died on the Death Star when challenged, but kind of responds to it in a yet here I am sort of way. This new knowledge now changes my belief that this is the real deal Emperor, and now makes me believe that this may be an issue left a little more on the open-ended and ambiguous side. The scene goes on to have Palpatine mocking Kylo's let the past die mindset and talks about how the past is the key to the future. I'm told Palpatine speaks of the Sith fleet being years in the making, and the Empire needed a leader to rule it. Palpatine also apparently tells Kylo of Rey's lineage during this conversation. All mentions of the dyad concept have apparently been scrubbed from the film at this point in time. The reason for this change is apparently similar to the removal of Oracle 2. Just confusing. It muddled what Sidious's goals were. The removal of the dyad concept apparently streamlined his motivations in Act 3. On the asteroid base, we pick up with Finn Poe on the Millennium Falcon, accompanied by a handful of unfamiliar alien characters, traveling to an icy asteroid base to meet with a First Order informant. This informant, an alien, is acting as middleman between the First Order and a mole of our heroes. I'm told that this contact's name is Bulio. The name has since been associated with the character first seen here. Bulio gives them some sort of data encoder with information on it. The First Order arrives and begins attacking the base. The assault causes forcing our heroes to make a hasty exit by what was described as springing away. I'm now hearing that this is called a lightspeed skip, not light springing, but the mechanics of it remain unchanged. A lightspeed skip involves making the jump to lightspeed without plotting a course or predetermined destination. As we all remember, making the jump to lightspeed without precise calculations could have dire consequences, such as flying through the star bouncing too close to a supernova. The Falcon makes a handful of these skips to know the First Order off their trail. As a result, they are forced to deal with the consequences of such a risky maneuver. Apparently, the Falcon is pursued by the First Order TIEs that performed the same maneuver to much less success. After surviving the dangers of lightspeed skipping, our heroes plot a course to the secret Resistance jungle base. On the base, Finn and Poe return, bearing the knowledge obtained from their encounter with the First Order informant. I'm told that it's been added in reshoots that Rey yells at Poe for damaging the Falcon while lightspeed skipping, and Poe yells at Rey for damaging BB-8. The Resistance reviews the information gleaned from the data encoder, and they find out about the Sith fleet and Palpatine's return. I'm told that cloning is once again discussed as a possibility, but it's confirmed or denied here or there. Snoke is apparently dismissed as a pawn working for Palpatine as he plotted his way back to the power from unknown regions. Finn apparently voices a concern over the children that will need to be kidnapped, as he was, in order to staff a fleet of this scale. I am told that this section was added in reshoots to provide more clarity on what's going on. First Order Star Destroyer. A room full of high-ranking First Order officers are gathered. Hux and Pride are among them. Bulio's head is apparently thrown onto a table. Kylo states to the room that he knows there is a spy within the First Order. Kylo seems to be okay with this because it will draw Rey out of hiding. I'm told that one officer suggests that the Sith fleet cannot be trusted, and this officer is subsequently choked, shoved into the ceiling, and dropped to the floor by Kylo. I'm told that this was added to give more clarity to the dynamic between the First Order and the Sith fleet. It also establishes that Kylo is still the one calling the shots within the First Order and answers the questions of what happened to Poe's contact. The Resistance Jungle Base. Leia dispatches the two of them, Poe and Finn, along with Rey, Chewbacca, BB-8, and C-3PO to Pasaana. Before taking off, a few things were apparently added in reshoots. Leia gives Rey her lightsaber back, and Maz gives Rey a little pep talk before she leaves. Rey tells the crew that Luke left behind some notes and coordinates with the Jedi text she stole from the tree library on Ahch-To that describe a Sith artifact that might help them. One of my sources say that they go to Pasaana to seek out a hermit that Luke knew. Pasaana. When our heroes arrive on the planet, they discover a giant festival is going on. This festival is apparently identified by 3PO as the Aki-Aki celebration and happens once every 42 years. We already know that the species seen on Pasaana Desert is called the Aki-Aki, so I think it's likely a descriptor, not the name of the festival itself. What they thought would be an easy mission has now turned into a much more complicated affair. They attempt to lay low, to blend in. Unsurprisingly, Chewbacca struggles with blending in because it's very difficult to hide a 7-foot Wookiee from prying eyes. Rey encounters an alien in the crowds who takes a liking to her, presenting her with handmade necklace as a gift. She's asked her name and she responds, Rey. When asked for her family name, she replies that she does not have one. I'm now being told that it's a child that gives the necklace to Rey. At this time, Kylo establishes a connection with Rey through their Force bond. According to Jedi Pax's contacts, their interaction consists of the following. Kylo antagonizes her about her parents, leaving her and selling her. He tells her she feels all alone and there is nobody who understands her except him. Their conversation ends with Kylo grabbing the necklace from around Rey's neck. Kylo analyzes the necklace on his Star Destroyer and finds out where it's from. Rey travels through the crowds to warn her friends of the First Order's knowledge of where she is when the First Order stormtroopers show up and ambush them. They are saved by someone in the crowd who escorts them to a safe area. It's Lando Calrissian. Greetings and introductions are exchanged. Lando tells them of a dagger that may help them find what they seek. Many years prior, Lando and Luke went in search of a Sith loyalist named Ochi. Luke and Lando's quest was for Sith relics and Ochi. The dagger wasn't a part of their search and it doesn't come into play until later. I'm now hearing Ochi of Bastoon as a possible more complete name for the character. Lando tells of how he and Luke had been searching the galaxy for Sith artifacts and spent some time tracking Ochi due to his knowledge of the Wayfinders. They eventually track him to Pasaana and find his ship, but no Ochi. They track Ochi to Pasaana when the trail went cold. When met with the question of why he never left the planet after the search for Ochi ended, Lando tells them that he had a young child at the time of his and Luke's quest. When they were out searching, the First Order stole his child. After having failed to protect his child from the First Order, Lando and Luke parted ways and he stayed on Pasaana ever since. Apparently, Lando believes that the First Order had a goal of turning the children of the heroes of the rebellion into their own enemies as a form of revenge. The story strikes a chord with Finn, having been stolen from his own family at an incredibly young age. The sound of the First Order ties can be heard, and apparently Lando is the one to deliver the "I have a bad feeling about this" line in The Rise of Skywalker. Lando points them in the direction of the last known coordinates of Ochi's ship, where the trail went cold all those years ago, wishing them luck succeeding where he failed all those years ago, and decides to sit this one out. A source told me he says no, that he himself is a relic and now belongs in the desert. That's not a direct quote from the film, just a direct quote from the source. Our heroes follow the trail that Lando pointed to them. The resistant group flees the area on speeders. They are chased into the desert by the First Order with the Knights of Ren further behind them, who arrive on Pasaana. It is as the first point that the Falcon is located and detained by the First Order. The speeder chase ends with the First Order troopers getting killed, and eventually they happen upon Ochi's ship. When Rey sees the ship, it triggers some memories. It's the same ship that we see them leaving Jakku in Rey's vision in The Force Awakens. Before implications of this can sink in, the ground beneath them gives out and the crew gets sunk below the surface of the sand. They find themselves in a series of underground tunnels where they discover the remains of Ochi and the dagger. It is discovered that Ochi was not just a Sith loyalist, but a Sith assassin. Rey feels a very strong connection to the weapon, but can't quite articulate it. They find the dagger among the remains, and Rey recalls that it was the tradition for Sith assassins to inscribe secrets on them. The dagger has writing in a language that nobody can identify. It's then handed over to 3PO, who identifies the writing as a Sith language, but he reveals he is unable to translate the writing due to restrictions in his programming. According to the updated information, C-3PO can read it. He knows what it says and tells the Resistance crew that it reveals the location to a wayfinder. However, his programming forbids him from providing a literal translation of the text. Chewbacca takes possession of the dagger and the group's attention shifts to finding a way out of the caves. During their escape attempt, the team runs into a giant, very aggressive sandworm, who presumably created the tunnels. A battle with the sandworm ensues, and our heroes are backed up into a corner, preparing to meet their fate when Rey notices a detail. The worm is injured. In a display of previously unknown power, Rey is able to heal the worm's injuries, satiating the worm, providing the heroes a chance to get the escape that they desperately need. Once the crew exits the cave system, they see the First Order Star Destroyers in the sky and know that Kylo Ren has found them. Once they realize, they correctly reason that the First Order would have already taken the Falcon, making the plan of escape impossible. In an act of desperation, the crew boards Ochi's ship and attempts to get it working. Rey senses that Kylo is coming for her, so she takes off on her own to confront him and buy her friend some time. This is where the TIE Interceptor flip sequence from the first teaser takes place. While Kylo and Rey are engaged, the Knights of Ren and the First Order head to Ochi's ship and our other heroes. Chewbacca splits off from the crew and attempts to delay the Knights, but is captured. The dagger is taken from him and he boards a First Order prisoner transport. Rey and Kylo both notice Chewbacca being taken captive and being brought to a transport ship during their confrontation. As the ship takes off, Rey shifts her attention from Kylo to her captured friend and begins to use the Force to stop the transport and pull it back to the ground. Kylo attempts to counteract this by pushing the ship away. Control over the ship becomes a battle between Kylo Ren and Rey, much like their battle for Anakin's lightsaber in The Last Jedi. Kylo begins to gain the upper hand, which angers Rey. In her frustration, lightning shoots from her hand, destroying the transport ship and killing all its passengers. Devastated by what she just did, Rey collapses. Some additional footage has been added of both Kylo and Rey's reactions to drive home the sense of shock and denial of what has just happened. While all this is transpiring, Poe, Finn, 3PO, and BB-8 get Ochi's ship in the air just in time to fly over to pick up a distraught Rey. With no Lando, no Falcon, no dagger, and no Chewbacca, our heroes limp away from the desert planet on Ochi's ship. An additional scene was shot where they find out that they do not have the possession of the dagger because Chewbacca had it, but all it's lost because 3PO has the message in his stored memory. A plan to hack 3PO's programming restrictions is formed and they set course for Kijimi. BB-8 finds and reboots D-O and Ochi's ship.